Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome Bachelor in Space Physics, CEO and founder of APIS Core. We print buildings on Earth and soon to be the Moon and Mars. So Anna Cheniuntai, welcome Anna. I would like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your career and entrepreneurial journey began?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having me. That's a true pleasure sharing my experience and what we do. And my journey started as an entrepreneur, I think, pretty early because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur, and that really made a huge contribution and impact on me who I want to be. So I knew that I want to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have any idea what exactly it's going to be, what the industry I'm going to be as an entrepreneur. And so while I were trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to do, I decided to spend my time at university by studying something fundamental, interesting, and inspiring. And so this is how I ended up learning space physics. And so then, almost in the last year of my study at university, I met my future co-founder, Nick. And that time, he already was running his own businesses, basically focused on the industrial machinery, CNC routers, and robotics. So I started helping him with the operational and business development part of the business. I learned a lot about the industrial machinery and robotics.
Yes.
That was a huge learning curve for me. And then we got the huge contract at Olympic Games. Basically, we had to build and deploy the ground navigation system for millions of visitors coming to Olympic Games. So we basically were responsible to not getting all of the visitors lost on the huge infrastructure of Olympic Games. So the ground navigation system consisted of almost 5,000 signages deployed everywhere. And it was a lot of different sizes, from the very small plastic sheet that you need to install on the wall and say like an ATM is there. And also it was a huge, massive concrete stelas, almost like 8 feet or 9 feet tall, when it was listing all of the information. Yeah, that was huge. Like, for example, Olympic Stadium is there, ATM is there, bus station is there. So we had to not only fabricate these signages, but also develop the routes, to navigate people around this, and also deploy this put in the design on the signages. So that was a huge experience, very massive. And that was the first time when I was really deeply introduced in the construction industry, because we were delayed many times by deploying our signages on the specific construction site because the building was not ready yet. However, it should have been ready by that time. And the problem was that the construction companies, they really relied on the skilled labor, which was really limited, and it's still very limited and expensive worldwide. So this is why they were all the time behind the schedule. For example, workers didn't show up on the construction site for a week. In the construction company, they couldn't do anything with this. They were searching for the labor, basically, to solve the problem, and we had to wait. So we had to all the time play around the schedule to actually deliver our work. And so this is when me and my co-founder, Nick, we just saw how outdated the construction industry was. And we believe that there is a space in construction industry where you can introduce automation and robotics to increase productivity, build faster, build with the predictable schedule and predictable result. And it was obviously that robotics is the solution for this. And so this is basically how we started APIS Core, by introducing the one-of-a-kind construction 3D printer, like a robot.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, to 3D print houses robotically.
Wow. So you're a technological innovator and entrepreneur who's obviously disrupting the construction industry. using proprietary robotics, as you've just mentioned, of printing 3D homes. So can you share with us more about this and what makes you so different from your competitors?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So basically, what we do is develop the technology to 3D print houses. And it's
Yes.
not like the small prototypes that you can put on your desk, for example. The real size houses built with the concrete, strong and durable concrete material. So the process of 3D print house, it fundamentally pretty the same as the traditional plastic 3D printing. But instead of plastic, we use a concrete material, and instead of small box-sized printer that typically put on the like a desktop style, we use bigger machine. And so the bigger machine deployed on the construction site, on the concrete slab, basically foundation of a house, and start printing walls of a house layer by layer. So again, pretty the same as you would 3D print some small thing with the plastic.
Yes, that's incredible. That's really amazing. So is this technology that you have, does this sort of give you a leading competitive edge over your competitors, or are there other people that are doing it? And if so, what do you think makes you or your company different or unique to your competitors?
Yeah, so industry of 3D printed homes and pretty fast growing. And we see more and more companies, robotics companies that 3D print houses using this innovative technology. But the one thing that really differentiate us from them is first the actual robotic solution that we have. Yes. And the quality of the walls and all of the material science involved in this. So we really deeply care about the technology and how this technology can be scalable and easily used by other construction companies, right? So because our goal is to really grow this technology and see more and more 3D printed houses built across the world. But to achieve this, you really need to have equipment and technology that can be scalable. And so what different thing that we have with the robotics is that our robot is really like a true mobile and transportable and have a very compact dimensions. So that makes it very easy and actually cost efficient to transport, deploy, and operate the printer on the construction site. For example, I can easily, so you basically just need only have the pickup truck and flatbed trailer. And I, for example, did it. So I can deliver the printer to the construction site. I can use the joystick to wheel our printer to the concrete slab, to the foundation, and start printing a house. So with other solutions, you cannot do this. You basically need a lot of people, of course, strong men, to help you to deploy and install the huge machine on the construction site. So I wouldn't be able to do this with the technology and the equipment that our competitors have, but I can do this with our technology. And so basically, our technology opens opportunities for younger generations and women like me to start doing the construction business, which used to be pretty male dominated before.
Yes. So within your career, what would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings have been? And maybe you've had multiple, but what stands out for you?
So I think that what I really learned is that you don't know what you're capable of until you try. So I was put in a lot of many challenges, and basically I had to do work that I didn't have experience with, or I never even did before, but I had to, right? Because in a startup, when you run a startup, you need to wear a lot of different hats. And so this is how I started doing something that I was like, oh, probably I'm not good at this. I don't know how to do this. Maybe I will not be able to do this. But then you try it, and then you see that you actually can be very good at this. And there is nothing really hard doing this, as long as you're really all the time improving what you do and changing the strategy, learning by your mistakes. So that was the one lesson that I took for myself, that you need to try first. Yes. And then it can open a lot of horizons for you. Of course, if it's really something that you need to have a very extensive experience and knowledge, like biotech or medicine, that's really something that you need to have a very proper education first. But
Yes.
all of the other million things that people can say you like, oh no, that's really like you need to have experience or something like this. You can try, and then you can figure out that those people were wrong, and you actually can do this.
Yes, absolutely. So the construction and tech industry is such a male-dominated industry, and you've been a very strong woman to succeed in this industry. So do you believe that this is changing by bringing young women and girls through STEM programs? And what do you still believe needs to happen to change the narrative?
So yeah, I agree that a lot of great things and initiatives have been done to promote women into the technology and more like hard industries by putting the girls in the STEM programs. That absolutely the huge thing that pushing everything forward.
Yes.
I also think that actually new technologies is something that help women to actually be involved in the industries like construction, for example, because
Yes.
construction used to be so, labor intensive, very like
Yes.
it required the hard physical work, right? So this is one of the reasons why it was so male dominated industry. And even actually today, the younger generation, they're not really attractive to do this hard dirty work, mixing the concrete on the construction site, or like staying at the construction site during the entire day when it's hot or very like cold weather, for example. But with the technologies, you can be an operator of the construction 3D printer, and you can 3D print a house, like basically build a house, right? Without doing this really like a labor intensive work. So technologies is something that really help more people to be involved in the industries that used to be very male dominated or very narrow, or required a very narrow expertise or experience. So I think that the technology is something that really reshaped the mindset and change the world, basically.
Absolutely. So having the technology you have, do you believe that this is creating a more cost-effective housing and reducing costs in general, or is this something that you're still working on?
So the technology that we use and develop through the print houses, it's basically the automation, right? And like any automation, it increases productivity, reduce the costs, and basically allows to build something with the consistent quality, consistent budget, like with all of the predictable variables. It's basically the same as Henry Ford did for the car industry by introducing automation, right?
Absolutely.
So this is why we actually today have almost everyone has a car, right? It's something like that considered pretty affordable. So you can have a very simple car, right? It's thanks to automation. This is thanks to how the cars are built, and basically thanks to Henry Ford. So he expanded the industry. So we do the same with the construction industry. If you can introduce automation in the right way, of course, this is something that allows to reduce the costs. And so it's not something that we're still working on. We know that the 3D printed houses can be cheaper up to 33%. Wow. Of course, depending on the market. It's really for the United States, and if you use our technology. Because if you use the other printers, like a Gantry, very huge printers, you will need to spend a lot of money just to transport them, deploy them, and operate them. Yes. So this is the huge factor that affect how the really cost efficient the technology can be. So as I said, in our case, you just need to have a pickup truck and one personnel basically to transport, deploy, and operate the printer. So we don't have those logistic costs. And so this is where we really bring the cost down to build a house.
That's amazing. So you are the co-founder and CEO of Apis Core, the most advanced and pioneering robotic 3D printing, which obviously we've spoken about, that prints full-scale buildings on Earth and soon on the moon and Mars, which is incredible. So can you explain to our audience more about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So basically, robots are the first who are going to be on Moon and Mars before any first human going to be there. And robots basically are already there, right? And
Yes.
so what we do on Earth, it's basically the automated robotics construction technology, which is obviously can be applied on Moon and Mars. And so what we do on Earth, of course, it's different, right? So the
Yes.
Moon and Mars, they have different environmental conditions, a lot of other different technological aspects that you basically need to create the technology to meet those requirements there. But anyway, what we do on Earth today will be applied for construction in space. Robots will be different, of course, materials will be different, of course, but the knowledge that we're going to have here and get here on Earth, that will help us to advance the construction, robotics, and autonomous technologies beyond Earth.
Wow, that's amazing. So when do you foresee this happening as far as Mars and the moon is concerned? Like in the next so many years, or realistically in your own mind, how soon do you think that's going to happen?
So the actual construction there on Moon and Mars, it really depends on many other factors and players in the industry. For example, the ability to bring a lot of materials there and like big cargo on Moon and Mars. So for example, companies like SpaceX, they're working on it, right? So we all really depends on the Starship, for example, because the Starship, that rocket can bring almost 100 tons of the cargo to Moon and Mars, right? So first, this has to be solved, right? So once we know that, okay, now we have the ability to bring a lot of stuff beyond Earth to start the construction, this is basically where we have a chance to really be there. But answering your question, I think it's like a 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
Maybe earlier, but again, it really depends on many other players.
Yes, absolutely.
Companies like SpaceX, for example.
For sure. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been?
So I think that they still up to this, like working on to have more and more career highlights. But I think that the Olympic Games and our work there was really like the huge achievement, not because of we made first big money there, but because we learned a lot. So I learned a lot and I did the work that was really like a very intensive, and we really need to work like 15 hours or like 20 hours per day, sometimes really like over the night, for example. So I kind of found the new boundaries, like expanded my boundaries of what I'm capable of. So that was really, really useful for me, I think. And now with the Episcore, I think that the Episcore as a company is another huge highlight in my career. And I believe that it's going to be more and more in the future because we are up to a lot of exciting things and developments that we go into, that we're working on now, and that they're going to make happen next year and maybe the next decade, right? So we're going to have a lot of achievements through Episcore, and I'm really honored to be part of this and running this company.
That's amazing. So you earned a bachelor's degree in space physics in 2014 and decided to take the leap into entrepreneurship. So what made you decide to do this degree, and what made you decide to get into such a niche industry?
So basically, as I was saying, I decided to study space physics because I wanted to study something very interesting and fundamental while I were figuring out what I'm going to do as an entrepreneur. And also, so my mom, she studied math. My dad, he is the PhD in geology, and all of my grandmothers and grandfathers, they also have a degree in geology or physics or math. So I was kind of surrounded by this type of mindset, all of the
Yes.
scientific people around me. So this is why I was like, okay, if I'm going to spend 5 years studying something, it has to be something really like a fundamental science. Because
Yes.
I believe it. And actually the friends of my mom, they also studied the fundamental science, but then they were successful entrepreneurs. So I just realized that to be an entrepreneur, it's not necessarily to have an MBA or something like this. You just need to get a very, I think, common and fundamental education, because that's going to be kind of your foundation of how you think, how your mindset set up, and basically that will provide you the very essential tools that you can apply to anything you're going to do, whether you're
Yes.
entrepreneur or even like a switch to another career. You're going to have a very good base foundation, right? So this is why I decided to study space physics, and it was really, really inspiring. So I really wanted to spend some time on this. I was like, okay, 5 years, it's really a good idea to spend this 5 years on that. And then I started the entrepreneurial career because I wanted to do this, and because I met Nick, and he has a lot of interesting project, and I just immediately immersed there. And then we basically started Episcore together too.
Wow, that's incredible. So what's even more amazing is obviously at the age of 22, you managed a $6 million project, which is obviously a massive responsibility and undertaking. So can you share with us more about this? And do you believe that this helped you in your current role? And what do you believe you do better?
Yeah, so that was huge. So basically me and Nick, when we show up in the Olympic commit, they were like, oh my God, we're in trouble, because we were basically students. We look like students. We were students, right?
Yes.
And but I'm really thankful to people in the Olympic commit who really believed in us and said like, yes, you need to do this. So it was a huge responsibility, not only the money wise. It was a huge responsibility because people believed in you and really supported you on the way when you were doing this project at such a young age. So I'm really thankful for those people. And so again, I learned a lot during that project, even starting from the fabrication, concrete science, how to manage about 50 people, all of the different contractors, the vehicles, the drivers, and even how to create the routes for the visitors in a pretty a new city that you're not really familiar with. So that was a lot of challenges that really significantly contributed in what I know today and how I perform today as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to talk about leadership, or the lack of leadership, from an entrepreneurial and global perspective. What do you believe makes your leadership style different? And what do you believe needs to change the current narrative in terms of leadership?
So I think something that really helped me probably is that I really go through entire processes in a practical way. So I'm basically like a doer, right? So
Yes.
when I tell them about the technology and what we are doing, it's not something that I just heard from my co-founder, who is the technical officer.
Yes.
It's just because I really went through all of the challenges, all of the problems by myself, starting from mixing the material through the print material, figuring out how it works, loading the material to the bulk truck together with my team. So I know everything, and I learn it from the very hard and practical way. And I think that's very important for the leaders, to really not to have this gap between what happens in the sales department or marketing department and what actually happens in the field. This is very, very important. So I believe that I almost don't have this gap, I think, because I really was on all of the projects that our company did in Dubai, in Missouri, in Boca Chica. So I actually went together through all of the really hard moments, physical work. And so I know almost all of the nuances.
Wow,
And I
that's
think it's really
amazing.
something that helped me when I tell into whether my team or investors or even like a future customers, when I tell them something, it's not just a, very nicely built sales speech. It's something that I know for real. And
Yes.
that really helped me, I think, that people believe in what I'm saying because they saw how I actually was doing this in a field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, with the use of technology comes responsibility. And with so much changing so fast, what is the ultimate vision for your company and the technology that you have developed? And how do you believe that this will serve humanity and planet Earth and impact it, in environmental and Earth perspective, and also in terms of humanity?
Yeah, so the main thing is that construction industry has not really changed a lot for like a hundred of years. And so, but what we are doing is basically help construction companies and home builders to increase productivity by using our technology, by using our robots. It's kind of like you can use the hand screwdriver or you can use the electrical drill, right?
Oh,
And of
wow.
course,
Okay.
with the electrical drill, you can be much faster and more efficient. So we
Yes.
kind of electrical drill.
Yes.
Before like people were building houses manually, basically assemble a million of materials together like a bricks or like a wood stick with nuts and bolts. So today they have robotics 3D printing technology to 3D print the shell of a house almost autonomously. And so we kind of electrical drill for this. And our mission is to equip the home builders and construction companies with this tool of productivity so they can build more houses faster, cheaper, with better quality. And basically they can fill the gap for affordable housing and for available housing. Because today it's not only the problem of the affordable housing, it's also the problem of availability of new houses. In the
Yes.
United States, for example, even if you have money, it does not mean that you can have a house like in a month, right? You probably will need to wait like 8 months if you want to build a house, like a new
Yes.
house. And sometimes you need to wait like even 1 year. I know people who have been trying to build a home and it was almost 1 year so far because of the
Wow.
material shortage, skilled labor shortage, and all of the other problems. So we want to change this. We want
Yes.
to increase the capacity, increase the amount of houses that can build within the year, for example, because there
Yes.
is a huge gap between how much we can build, how many houses we can build with the traditional construction and how many houses we actually have to build to meet the growing demand. And so with the robots and technology that we have, we basically fill this gap without taking someone jobs because there is
Yes.
still a huge demand and there is still a lot of work for people and for robots. And so our goal for the humanity and for the planet has to be how we can really supply more houses worldwide. And from the environmental perspective, what is really great about the technology is that you can introduce new materials, new 3D print materials that, for example, does not contain cement at all. It's like a cement-free materials.
Wow.
And yeah, and our company has a plan for this too. It's like the next step of technology development. And you also generate way less waste because with the 3D printing, it's basically additive manufacturing. You add as much material as you need, right? But when you use the traditional method, it's basically like a subtractive fabricating process when you need to cut out all of the material to create the shape. And this
Yes.
is why you basically, you have a house and then you have a huge pile of waste next to your dream house because you needed to like cut a lot of materials from the bricks, for example, from the wood stick or something like this. With the 3D printing technology, we can significantly reduce this because you use as much material as you need. You don't
Yes,
have
which
to.
makes so much more sense.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the pandemic has turned our worlds upside down and inside out. Can you share with us how this affected you personally and professionally, and what you did to adapt during this time?
That was very challenging for me in the beginning.
Like for all
Uh,
of us, terrible.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was like you didn't know what's going to be next, right? In 2020 when it just started. But the other thing for us as a company is that we just started the accelerating program in Alchemist Accelerator. It is one of the top startup accelerators located in Silicon Valley. They focus on B2B startups.
Yes.
And we're supposed to be in a in-person program, but then the COVID happened, and they basically said that we have to switch to the remote program. And that was first time when they were doing this. And for us, it was also like the online meetings are not the same as the in-person meetings, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, and so basically we were fundraising that time from angel investors. And so just imagine you need to raise money over Zoom with people that you never met before, and you actually need to pitch them and raise money over the Zoom. That was the huge challenge for me, but actually eventually it worked out, and we raised first money there. But during the process, it was a huge learning curve, learning by your mistakes, adapting the strategy, and raising money over the Zoom, it's not easy.
No. Shame, that's hectic. So that leads me to the last question. What are the three key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and how would you like to be remembered, or what legacy would you like to leave?
So I would say the advices is that there are your people out there. You just need to keep searching for them. So for
Yes.
example, whenever raising money, I received like dozens no's in a row, right? And it was really like discouraging. But
Yes.
then I still remember one of the first angel investor who just gave me the first check for it wasn't a lot, like a $10,000, but he gave me this check almost right after our Zoom call. And it was so encouraging for me. And I really needed that piece of encouragement that time. And I was realized that, yeah, even if you're receiving like 100 of no's, it does not mean that you're on the wrong path. You just need to keep searching for your people, for people who can believe in you. That's one of the advice. So just don't give up. I know that it's pretty like a cliche, but don't give up.
Yeah, but it's very true. It's very, very true.
Yeah, and as I said, it's like you never know what you're capable of. So don't be afraid of trying new things. And even hundred of people say you should try this. Just don't believe that. First, taking some advices and ask the recommendations, but still like keep trying to do new things.
So what is the legacy you would like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered?
I would really want to do the positive impact on the construction industry. And basically, I want to almost every single person on earth eventually having the house, right? Because today it's really terrible situation. In some countries, people don't have even like a very simple shelter or like a roof on their
Roof over their heads. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I really want to change this, and I believe that through the technology that we are developing, it is going to happen. And I also want to do the kind of to change the landscape of the construction industry, so more women like me can be in the construction industry by utilizing the advanced robotics technologies. So I want to really change that as well.
Well, that's amazing, Anna. Thank you so very much for your time. So if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
So LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me.
Okay, perfect. Well, hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey. And thank you so very much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.